Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I have my pregnancy story for you guys. I asked if you guys wanted to see this or a mom weekend, how my weekends go with my son and stuff on Instagram, and I got more votes for this video, but I went ahead and took some footage this weekend of me and my son's day, and I'll have that video up. This is just going to be my experience. I do want to have a dedicated video to how I told my boyfriend and my parents and all of that, and then a separate video for my labor and delivery. So this is just how my pregnancy went. I was 19 years old when I was pregnant, and I had my son at 20. So I got pregnant mid-February, and whenever I found out I was pregnant, I was already 5 going on to 6 weeks. So I didn't think I was pregnant. I was in my second year of college at the time, and this was during spring break when I guess I was getting the first symptoms of pregnancy, but I didn't realize it. We were visiting family in California, and this was my first time in California, in Los Angeles, so I was pretty excited to go. And then on the way there, I just started getting super emotional, and I didn't want to leave my hometown, and I started missing my boyfriend, which it was only going to be a couple of days, but I was like, no, I don't want to go anymore. But I didn't want my family to feel bad. And then whenever we were there, the first thing I told my mom was I don't want to be here, I want to go back. And she was pretty bummed out, so she was like, you know what, I'll get you a plane ticket and send you back. And then I was like, no, don't do that, because then I felt bad, because I didn't want my aunt and my cousins to feel bad. I just got there and I wanted to leave, and it was just a mixed emotions. I kept wanting to go out, but at the same time I didn't want to be there. And then 2 days later, I got some bleeding, so I thought that was my monthly package thing, and so I just was like, oh, okay, that's why I've been feeling like this, even though I'm not the type that gets real moody whenever I am on my period. I just thought that maybe that was the reason why I was being that way. And so the rest of the week there, I was just not wanting to do anything or nothing. Somewhere simple, not too crowded. My cousins went to Disney World, which I've never been to, and I was like, no, I don't want to go and stuff. So it was just real weird. But yeah, whenever we came back and it was time to start school again, my first class that I had was a fitness class, and so we were gonna start to move into doing heavy weightlifting and all of that. And I don't know, we didn't start it yet, but I was just man, I feel I shouldn't be doing that. I just had this feeling, and I told my friend, I was like, I want to take a test just to make sure, because we're fixing to do this and I feel I shouldn't. And so she's like, yeah, let's go buy one after class or whatever. That was April 1st, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna wait till the next day, and because it's April Fool's, if I am pregnant and I go tell my boyfriend and stuff, he's not gonna believe me, he's gonna think I'm pranking him. So I waited till the next day, and then after class we went to a Family Dollar, and I bought 3 pregnancy tests because I wanted to make sure there was a tiebreaker, I guess. And so I took the test, they came out positive, and so I went off and told my boyfriend and my other friends, and then we waited till I was 14 weeks to tell my parents, just to make sure that I was carrying the baby well, that I actually made it through my pretty much my first trimester. And I was taking prenatals and everything, so I was making sure I was taking care of myself. And I also wanted to first graduate. I was getting my associates, so I wanted to get that out of the way, not have my parents be mad and not go to my graduation, So after that, I told them, and Then from there, I made my first prenatal visit with my doctor, and it was till late July that they could get me in. So I graduated in May, and then they could get me in till late July. And so I just waited for my appointment or whatever. Well, March was whenever I got my period, but I was already pregnant since like mid-February. So I don't know what that bleeding was about, but I did mention it to my doctor, and they were like, so that was probably like just any like remaining blood that I had, and it was just, you know, coming out. Then in May, I had light bleeding again. So they made an appointment earlier to like early July, like the first week of July. Well, on Father's Day, June 17th, I believe that's when it was in 2018, we went out with my dad and we took him out to eat or whatever. And then I went to hang out with my boyfriend at his house, and I was just laying down in bed and he was playing video games. And so I was just there watching TV, and I sat up, and you know how you feel like whenever you like have sudden movements and you're on it, like you can feel stuff come out or whatever to my, but you know, I felt like, you know, something was coming out. And so I stood up, and I just felt like stuff was running, and like I looked down and I have blood like running down my thighs. And so I just quickly like pull my shorts down, and I'm freaking out, and then I like grab whatever was nearest to me, like a t-shirt, and then like a massive clot of blood came out, and it was like baseball size. It was huge. It was a big like blood clot like this big, and I felt it. And as soon as I saw it, I like cried so hard, and I was freaking out. And I called my mom, and my sister, like, she just like came into my boyfriend's house, like said nothing to his parents or anything, like just busted in there. And then they like knocked in my boyfriend's door, and we were all like in shock. And then my mom and my sister took me to the ER. And that was the first time that we got to see the baby. They did an ultrasound and they ran some tests, and we saw that his heart was still beating and everything. And I was there for like, I want to say like 5 hours, probably more, that I was in the ER. And the test came back, and nothing came back of it, like at all. And so that was pretty frustrating to me. Like, I didn't know why I was like still like getting like monthly bleeding and stuff, but they just basically said like, if it's not hurting me, like not to worry about it, because they couldn't figure out what it was. So then after that, like I would get every now and then like spotting, and so I would just like talk myself through it and just be like, okay, you're fine, like it's not hurting or anything. And then once I started feeling my baby move, that like calmed me down more, because I like, you know, it assured me that he was like alive. I bought a Doppler to hear his heartbeat, just because I was really nervous about whenever I would bleed. I wanted to make sure I could hear his heartbeat, so I would do that every now and then. Like, I heard it's bad to like be doing it like every day, so every now and then like I would check up on his heartbeat, and I would make sure that, you know, I could hear it. And so after that, I had my first appointment, and he was measuring good, slightly smaller than he was supposed to, but they said that that was pretty average. So my first appointment was like early July, and then the next appointment, which was supposed to be my first one, that's whenever we got to find out the gender. And we actually waited till our gender reveal in August for us to find out what we were having. That's when we found out we were having a boy, and we were so happy. I was very excited. At first I thought I wanted a girl. Like, I really thought I wanted a girl just because of all the cute stuff that they have. But then, like, literally I had a feeling that I was having a boy. Like, I would refer to the baby as he. I would tell my coworkers like, oh yeah, like this is his little hand, and they're like, wait, you know the gender already? I'm like, no, like, I just call him, you know, like he. And I just always like referred to him as a boy, because I was just like, I just had a feeling that I was having a boy. And so, yep, we ended up finding out that we were having a boy. We were very happy and excited, especially my boyfriend, like he was so happy. Anytime I would have bleeding, I was just like trying to brush it off and not think too much of it. I was just like, okay, like I don't feel like I'm hurting or anything. And like my pregnancy was like very, like I felt so normal. I felt like me, like I didn't feel like extra tired or anything. I mean, there was times where I was tired, but see, I thought this was like me like transitioning from school. Like, you know, you get those breaks in between and then you're just like I'm not trying to go to school, you know. And so it just felt like that. Like I was just like, man, like I want to stay like in bed and not go to school. I didn't get morning sickness at all. Like the first couple of weeks I would get nauseous whenever I would wake up in the morning, and sometimes throughout the day. But throughout my whole pregnancy, brushing my teeth was what would get me nauseous, like all the time. But it never made me throw up. Like I never threw up. And I felt pretty good. Like there wasn't times where I was tired or anything. At work, I was like back and forth and walking and like just doing like everything. Like no task was too hard for me to do. And so literally I was thinking like, man, like if this is how pregnancy is, like I'll have all the babies, you know, like not really though, but I really think like Mother Nature tricks you. Like your first pregnancy is like, you know, like, oh, like this isn't nothing, like let me have another one. And then I hear that like your second baby or like the ones after that, like pregnancy's a little tough on those. So, and that's why I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait. But yeah, like I always felt good. So anytime I would like have the bleeding, I was just like, okay, like I'm not hurting or anything, so I'm just not gonna think about it. Well, in September, like early September, I got some bleeding, but it was like little clots of blood. It was usually like runny blood, you know, like if you're dripping from your nose, like very runny. Well, these were little clots of blood I noticed, and they just really concerned me. So I called labor and delivery and they told me to go up there and that they would check it out. And so I went and they had me with the monitor and everything, and the nurse was like, she's like, are you feeling that? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you are getting contractions. My due date wasn't till November 27th, and this was like, I want to say like September 4th. She was like, you're getting contractions. And I was like, oh, like I didn't know that's what it was. Like I would tell my mom, like he's kicking me like really low and it feels like his foot is like gonna come out. And my mom would just tell me to lay down, and I was like always like so like nervous. I'm like, why does it feel like this? Like I literally feel like he's gonna like kick out. Like that's what it felt like. And it was always at night, and that was like the most like painful part of it. It wasn't like excruciating pain, it was just like really uncomfortable. So I would just lay down and it would go away, but then every now and then it would come back. Turns out what I was feeling was contractions, and so I told the nurse that it had already been going on. And she's like, okay, if these start to get worse, like if they start to get really bad or like closer together and more consistent, like come back, and we're gonna have to probably see about inducing me or just seeing what the next step from that was. And so basically she just told me to get some rest for the rest of the weekend. I went on a Friday, and so she's like not to go to work on Saturday. Wanted me to just basically stay in bed, so I didn't go to work, and I just like took it easy. And they didn't change, like it was still the same feeling I was getting, so I didn't go back up, and then eventually they stopped. So after that, at the end of September, I started feeling like I could feel like my skin stretching, and I'll try to insert pictures of what I looked like. I never really got a big belly, and I was pretty bummed out because I got some maternity pictures, but I was like, I'm gonna wait till I'm closer to my due date because I want, like, you know, like maternity pictures with my big round belly. And literally in those pictures I was like sticking my belly out as much as I could to make it look like nice and round, because I didn't look pregnant at all. Like, I would go to work and everything, and then customers there, like I worked at a bank, whenever I came back they were like, we just saw that you were gone, and we're like, did she leave? And they said no, she had a baby. And they're like, we didn't even know you were pregnant. And yeah, like a lot of people didn't even know I was pregnant, not even in the bank. They're like, they didn't know about it. I started feeling like I was getting huge, like my stomach was just gonna like pop, and I was like, maybe he's just growing. And so I was barely gonna start my weekly checkup. I went in and the end of September, and the doctor was like telling me that I hadn't been gaining much weight, and that he wanted to schedule an ultrasound to see how big my baby was. And the next ultrasound wasn't gonna be till like the second weekly checkup, so in like 4 weeks. So he scheduled an ultrasound to be on October 30th, just to get like a measurement of him, because they were saying that I wasn't gaining weight or anything, and that he was concerned that he was small. Like the end of September, our state fair was here in town, and I went every single day, you guys. Like, I went and I would just go. Like, obviously I wasn't gonna ride any rides. I was 7 months pregnant, and so I was just going just for the food. Like, whoever was down to go, like my boyfriend's sister or my sisters, whoever was going that day, like I was going with them, and I was just gonna go eat or whatever. And so we were walking and walking, and every day I would come home and I would just like flop in bed, and my boyfriend's like, don't go if you're tired. And I was like, no, I'm not tired, like it's just because I'm pregnant. But you know, I was going for the food, and I really didn't feel like I was pushing my body or anything. I just wasn't used to walking that much, so it was getting me a little bit tired. But then I started noticing that like my stomach was feeling like it was stretching at that point. From the first week of September, whenever I had the bleeding and they told me that those were actually contractions, I had some bleeding again, but then, you know, like the nurse had told me if they weren't strong to not worry about them. So they were feeling basically the same as they did a month back. So I didn't mind them, like I didn't pay any, like, you know, I wasn't worried about them. And so I just went back to feeling normal. Like, I wasn't feeling like I was getting tired or anything. And then a day before I gave birth was exactly a month to my due date. It was October 27th, and again my due date was November 27th. And I was working that day. It was a Saturday, and this sweet lady that would go to the bank, she like knew about my pregnancy, and she would always ask me like how I was feeling and everything. And so she's like, you're almost having that baby. And I was like, yeah, I am. And then I looked at the date and I was like, oh, like exactly a month from today, like a month from today I'm gonna have my baby. And then she's all like, oh, like how awesome, and like good luck and everything. And I was just like, yeah, like she was just telling me like good luck in case you like have to leave early, like I like hope like everything goes good. And I was just like so like happy. Like I realized that it was a month to my due date, and I told my coworker that was working there, I was like, oh my god, like I have a month to prepare. And I tried not to think about labor until it was getting closer to the day. And so from there I was like, okay, I have a month to prepare for the labor experience. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna start thinking about this. I'm gonna start like, you know, getting myself mentally prepared for it. And you guys, like, we had nothing ready. Like, my baby shower was scheduled to be November 13th, and that was pretty late, but you know, like, I didn't know when was a good time to have it, and so we didn't have anything ready. We didn't have like a hospital bag or anything like planned. Like, I didn't want to start doing anything like too early, so I was like, okay, I have a month left for that, like, I'm gonna start getting stuff ready now. Well, that night, that Saturday, we went out with my sisters, and we were out at Buffalo Wild Wings till like 2 in the morning. Buffalo Wild Wings is like down the street from the hospital I gave birth in. So we were just like, oh, like a month from today, we're gonna be driving down, we're gonna have a baby, you know? And so we were just like, yeah, like, that's exciting. And we were done with that, and we drove home. And so I was just asking my boyfriend, like, if he was gonna be nervous and stuff like that. And he's like, no. And so we get home, and I went to sleep. And then at 5 in the morning, so about like 2 to 3 hours later, I wake up because I feel myself just completely wet. And I wake up and I am super embarrassed because I thought I had an accident. And I was just like, oh my God, like, what do I tell my boyfriend? And I was up, like, thinking, like, what do I do? Like, what? I don't want to, like, tell him, like, I just had an accident. But then I was like, well, whatever, I'm pregnant, like, you know, it happens. But I was just real, like, nervous to tell him. So I got up and I went to the restroom, and as soon as I sat down, it just started, like, coming out. And I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, why can't I control it? Like, this is, like, this sucks. Like, I thought it was just, like, the last month of pregnancy where, like, they say, like, you just keep going to the bathroom, you can't control it. So I was like, man, like, this is gonna suck if this happens at work. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't control it. And I stood up and I was dripping and dripping. And so I was like, no, like, I seriously, like, I don't think there's no way, like, I can't control this. So I started, like, maybe it's my water that just broke. So I called my sister, and mind you guys, it was like, at this point, like 6 in the morning. I called my sister and she didn't pick up, and I called my mom, didn't pick up. So I was just walking around the house and I was feeling completely fine. Like, I thought whenever you were going into labor, like, your water breaks and you're starting to feel like contractions and you're there screaming and all of that. Like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I didn't want to think about it either, so I wasn't asking yet. So I'm just walking around the house and I'm like thinking all these kinds of things to tell my boyfriend. Like, I told my coworkers about this and they were just laughing. I was like, literally, I was gonna go to the kitchen and grab me a bowl of cereal and sit down in bed and just be like whoops, and like, oh my God, like, the bed is wet, like, get up so I can, like, change the sheets. But it was just crazy. Like, I was just like, man, like, I don't want to tell him, like, I, like, had an accident. And then I called labor and delivery, and I was like, I'm not sure if it's my water or what. And they were like, well, you need to come up here to get checked, you know, like, we can't tell you what it is through the phone. And so I was like, okay, yeah, duh. And so I called my mom again, and she picked up, and I told her, and she's like, que si me estaban dando dolores. And I was like, no, like, I don't feel anything. And she's like, they're probably just gonna send you back home if that's what it is. So if you want to wait, just wait until you start, like, feeling the contractions. So we hung up, and then I went back in bed, and then that's whenever I told my boyfriend. I told him, I was like, hey, I'm not sure if I just wet the bed or if it's my water. And he was just like, oh, okay. And I was just like, oh wow, like, he didn't care, you know. And I was like, yeah, like, my mom said you just wait and see if I start getting contractions. And he's like, okay, so what do you want to do? And I was like, I'll just give it a minute. And then, like, 30 minutes later, my mom calls and she's like, you know what, just go to the hospital, because apparently one of my aunts had waited too long, and whenever she gave birth, my cousin came out, like, purple, because she had, like, no more liquids or anything, and that's what, like, babies used to breathe, you know. And so she's like, don't wait, like, just go ahead and go. And if they, like, send you home or whatever, or to walk, like, at least you got checked. And so I got up and I just knocked in my brother's room and I told him, I was like, hey, we'll be right back, like I'm gonna go get checked. And he's like, okay. And I got in the car, and then we were making our way to the hospital, and I told my boyfriend, I was like, can we pick my mom up? And he's like, yeah. And so we still went, picked up my mom, and then we got to the hospital, and he offered to drop me off at the entrance, and I was like, no, like just go park, like I'll walk. Like I wasn't feeling bad at all. And so he parked, and I walked all the way to the hospital. And I was like, go wait with my mom, like I'll be right back. Like I was so like confident that, I don't know, that I wasn't fixing to give birth. And he waited, and the nurse took me in and she checked me, and they put the little pH strips, and she's like, okay, yeah, that's definitely your water. And I was like, okay. And so she checked how much dilated I was, and I was 3 centimeters. And she's like, do you have any family here? And I was like, yes, my boyfriend and my mom. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna go call them because we gotta get you in a room. You're fixing to have this baby. And so I was like, okay. And so she stepped out and gave me my gown, and as I was changing, I was just like, what the heck? Like I literally had no time to think about this. Like I thought I had a whole month, but like it's fixing to happen. So yeah, they got me into the room, and I was there for 8 hours. So I got to the hospital at 8, and at 3:29 I gave birth to my son, and it was crazy. It was like very emotional, like I'm fixing to cry. But it was just like a very emotional experience. I was like super scared because he was a month early. He weighed 4 pounds 11 ounces, and he was so tiny. And whenever they laid him on my chest, like I just had like a little tiny like ball laying here, and I was just like I was just thinking like, oh my god, like he's so small. I'm seeing newborn babies all the time. Like there's always someone in my family having babies, and so whenever I felt him, I was just like he is so small. And I was like crying so hard. And they did tell me, like they had to sign paperwork and everything in case he was gonna have to get like airlifted to like the children's hospital, or if we were gonna have him stay in the NICU, how like things were gonna go, like as far as visitations, that one of us was gonna have to go in. And you know, wearing gowns, everybody like wearing gowns, gloves and everything. And so they told me, like, if he doesn't have to stay in the NICU, like we'll check him real quick and hand him back to you. And if he does, like you'll still get to hold him, and then we'll have to take him. You'll hold him, we'll check him, and if he has to go, we'll let you know and we'll take him. So yeah, like whenever he came out, they laid him on my chest and I had him. Then they cleaned him up and everything, and they got him checked, and then they wrapped him up and slid his little crib over next to me. And the nurse and the doctor were like, oh, like congratulations, and then they walked out. And so I was just there thinking, like, is he good? Like, are we gonna have to do anything? And they just didn't say anything. And I mean, then again, they had told me, like, if he was good, like we weren't gonna like have to do anything really. And then I asked a nurse that came in, I was like, so is he gonna have to be like in the NICU or anything? And they were like, no, he's fine. And so I was really happy about that. At the same time, very nervous, because I was like, is he really okay? Like, he's a whole month early. Like, is he really okay? They ran a lot of tests on him. They ran like breathing tests, how he was breathing in a car seat, and other tests, because they say that the last month, well, month 8, that they're developing their lungs, so they wanted to make sure he was breathing right. And everything was good with him. He didn't spend a night in the NICU. We just stayed there the regular 2 nights, and we got to take him home after the 2 nights. And my doctor wasn't the one that delivered my baby. It was the doctor on call. So he went on the next day whenever he was working, and he came and visited us, and he was like, I didn't wait, huh? Like, we were supposed to see you tomorrow, like our ultrasound, like that's whenever he wanted to see how big he was. So he just joked about that. He was like, he's like, you probably heard me say I wanted to see how big you were, and so you just decided to come out. But yeah, like he said that he had a feeling that he was going to be real small, and it doesn't worry me. He's healthy, he's good, and so that's all that matters. And yeah, if you guys want to hear about my labor and delivery experience and my how I told my boyfriend and my parents, I'll have those videos up hopefully after these couple of videos. And yeah, little story about my pregnancy. Not a lot of people knew about. That wasn't something that I wanted to be public about. A lot of people, like my friends on Snapchat and stuff, and on Instagram, were like in shock because I was always posting like, oh, November 27th and everything, and then out comes baby like in October, and they were like, what, like why are you in the hospital? Because I just took a picture of us in the room, and they were like, why are you in the hospital, is everything okay? And I wasn't replying because I was like in labor. And then I posted a picture of my son, and they were just like, what, like did you already give birth? And I was like, yes. And it was just crazy. Like, I was scared, and there was so many things running through my mind, but it was worth it. And I'm just so happy that I have my son and that he was healthy. So yeah, that is it. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!